again. My name is Lisa Dregney, Long-Term Care Planning and Insurance Advisor with Yorkshire Insurance Advisors. Welcome back. In this video, I want to specifically talk about why you should plan for a long-term care event, now that we've addressed the common excuses why many don't. Take a minute and write down your motivation for planning for a long-term care event. Is it due to a personal experience or that of a friend or family member? Is it because you don't have any family you can count on for your care one day and need to put your care plan together ahead of time? Although there are many reasons to plan for long-term care, I find it boils down to these three: choice of care, protect your loved ones, and protect your plan of care. If you're like me, you're asking yourself, well, how does long-term care planning help? I find it tends to be easiest to illustrate the how through a story. Although I'm sure you could poke holes in small details of this upcoming scenario, let's focus on the overall concepts I'm trying to communicate, which are really important and very rarely thought about ahead of a care need. So I'd like to introduce you to John and Mary, who are high school sweethearts, married now for 60 years. Neither can imagine life without the other. They raised two amazing grown children, a bachelor son, Mike, age 55, who lives about 15 minutes away, and a married daughter, Michelle, age 50, who lives about an hour away and is mother of their three beautiful grandchildren, ages 10, 15, and 17. John and Mary have had a great life together, but now that both are age 85, they've slowed down substantially, and John has recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Mary has been covering for his memory deficit for well over a year already, not wanting to admit what was happening, and she is most definitely showing signs of caregiver stress, exhaustion, and depression. She hasn't been out with her friends, nor has had much of any social activity in the last 9 months. She's been too worried about leaving John alone that long, even to visit Michelle and the grandkids for a few hours. Over the past year, Mike hasn't been around all that much since he has this amazing sales career where he's traveling all over the world, living the dream, as we'd say. Michelle has also been so busy with her own accounting career, marriage, and life with 3 kids who have endless activities all week long. Living about an hour away, it's been just too hard for her to get over to see Mom and Dad for more than a quick visit here and there, which is why she didn't really notice Dad's Alzheimer's. Although Mike and Michelle are friendly, they aren't very close, and Mike has always felt Michelle was the favorite and got all the attention from Mom and Dad. It was a few weeks before Thanksgiving when Michelle got the call that Mom was in the hospital. She had a heart attack. Michelle ran to the hospital, and fortunately Mom was okay, but learns of Dad's diagnosis, and he needs her help immediately until Mom can leave the hospital, and then won't even be able to care for Dad like before doctor's orders. The caregiving Mary provided had taken a serious toll on her health. The news has hit both Michelle and Mike hard. They're scared for Mom and grieving for the fact that they're losing Dad. This is a lot to deal with all at once, on top of everything else already going on in their lives. So that's the story. And next I'm going to help play out what often is the result of a situation like this, where little to no planning is done with respect to the 3 primary reasons you should plan for a long-term care event. Again, those are choice of care, protect your family, and protect your plan of care. So we'll start with choice of care. In most cases, it's the oldest daughter that steps in and helps coordinate the parents' care when neither are in a position to. And there's no doubt that in this case, it would be Michelle needing to drop everything to attend to Dad's needs and figuring out how both he and Mom would be cared for. Upon review of Mom and Dad's finances, Michelle determines that there's only the equivalent of 2 years of memory care at an assisted living facility available, and their income is barely enough to cover their current expenses, let alone variable ones, which means they've been drawing from savings on a monthly basis. John and Mary hadn't planned for the significant expense, neither with investments nor long-term care insurance, unfortunately. John truly felt this would never happen to him, and Mary never spoke up with a differing opinion. It was determined quickly that neither Mike nor Michelle could care for Dad full-time without significant financial sacrifice, And plus, he needed professional monitoring and care, and it would be hard enough for Michelle to make weekly trips to keep an eye on Mom now, who would be living alone. Although everyone would have preferred John be cared for at home, it wasn't realistic financially, and they wanted as much choice now as possible for his care while there was 2 years of assets to work with. It wasn't easy, but they found a nice memory care facility that will take Dad with only 2 years assets, and that won't move him out if and when he goes on Medicaid. This facility, unfortunately, is 45 minutes away from Mary, and she will not be able to visit him as frequently as she would like, since she only drives that far on really good weather days, and neither Michelle nor Mike can take her on a regular basis. It's unfortunate the nice new facility right down the street for them is private pay only and denied John's application based on the lack of available assets for his expected longevity. Had the assets or long-term care insurance to qualify been available, number one, Mary would have been able to see the love of his life every day. Number two, Mary could afford some part-time help so Michelle didn't have to make weekly trips to prepare meals for the week and help with shopping and cleaning, which is precious time away from her work and family. She should just enjoy visits with them instead as often as she could. Number three, Mary could afford all current monthly expenses, so John didn't have to step up financially and help with those, so she could stay at home as long as possible. Number four, Mary would have choice of her own care when and if it's needed. At this point, she will likely use up what assets she has left before she even needs care, allowing for very limited options for her care when needed, as she'll likely be on Medicaid from day one. The home is not worth all that much, unfortunately, since it would need $50,000 at least in repairs and updates just to put it on the market. The lack of financial planning for this event has cost everyone dearly, and the choices everyone would have made for John and Mary's care would have been different had there been assets or long-term care insurance to pay for it. If only John had thought about the rest of the family when he made the bold assumption he would never need long-term care, as they would have had time to make adjustments to their budget, income, and possibly invested in their long-term care insurance for both of them, allowing them the choice and care the entire family wanted. Number two, protect your loved ones. It takes a village to provide your long-term care needs, whether that's family or hired professional care, and planning ahead of time can really help limit the effects of a long-term care event on those you love. In this story, the financial shortfall is what ended up affecting both Mike and Michelle the most, with Michelle giving up her very limited time caregiving for Mom rather than just visiting her as a daughter and spending important time with her husband and kids. She is likely to burn out just as Mary did, caring for John, trying to be Superwoman. Mary suffered physically and emotionally taking on the role of sole caregiver so long, something perhaps she would have asked for help with earlier if the plan had been to do so from the start. Had there been long-term care insurance for John that covered the cost for the facility down the street, it would have made all the care decisions that much easier for Michelle. Both Michelle and Mike feel guilty Dad is so far away, and that neither was able or willing to pay the difference to have Dad go there. I didn't even address in this scenario the estate planning that very often isn't done ahead of a long-term care event. The powers of attorney documents are critical to those you trust being able to act on your behalf. Michelle can't just step in and make decisions for either John and Mary without financial or healthcare powers of attorney. If they weren't in place, she'd have to hire an attorney and go to court to be granted these rights, often costing thousands of dollars and more time away from those that need her. How would that be fair when it was a relatively nominal investment in comparison to you to make sure those documents are executed by an estate planning attorney? Finally, it's important with long-term care planning to have discussions about the possibility of a long-term care event ahead of time so everyone in the family understands their role. Michelle nor Mike knew what their roles were supposed to be. They just jumped in and they didn't fight over it, but no doubt neither thinks their share is equal or fair. It is very common for siblings to fight over every detail of Mom and Dad's care to the point where they may never speak to each other again. I have personally heard multiple times from clients that this was the case. What if a few years ago, all four of them sat down and had a conversation about what would work with their current assets, who would perform each role, expectations, etc.? What if Mary were upfront about John's health and got help early, Would the heart attack have still happened? The third area protects your plan of care. A well-designed long-term care plan also limits the likelihood of abuse significantly, examples of which can range from withholding proper care for financial benefit to straight-out theft. We do our best to pick powers of attorney we can trust who will make decisions that are in our best interest when we can no longer can, but it's human nature for those individuals to start thinking of your money as their own once they have control of it, especially if they're the beneficiary of your assets as well. I wish I could say this doesn't happen often, but it does even with the trusted loved ones, and needs to be part of the conversation when putting your long-term care in place to ensure funding is available for your plan of care whenever you need it. In this story, what if Mike were the one granted financial power of attorney since mom and dad assumed he would be the best with money? But nobody knew he had a serious gambling problem and had significant debt because of it. The temptation to not take mom and dad's money at that point is very strong, probably too strong. He would likely tell himself he was owed it because Michelle got her education paid for and he didn't, because he got a great job right out of high school. Or perhaps it would be something else to rationalize the decision to steal. The lost money might mean mom has to sell the house and rent instead, or Michelle might have to take her into an already full house, putting huge strain on her marriage. If John and Mary had long-term care insurance, even if John had stolen money, John's care plan would have been protected since it would be very unlikely the policy wouldn't be used for his care. To conclude this video, I just want to say that planning for a long-term care event is one of the biggest gifts you can ever give your loved ones, and they may never realize it. If planned right and communicated, you're sparing them not only the significant financial burden of caregiving, but also the physical and emotional consequences of having to provide your care. Also, when you plan out what you want for your care, share that information with your loved ones, and properly fund the plan, your loved ones can remain the spouses, daughters, sons, nieces, and nephews they were previously by simply helping coordinate your care, not provide it. Now that you know why planning for long-term care is so important, the next video addresses when's the ideal time to start planning. Until then, thank you.